Today we're going to talk about flash in photography. It is one of the important lessons in photography, as it is difficult as a photographer not to have one. There are many situations where there is not enough light for a proper exposure, and without a flash you will not get any good results. As a beginner, it is very scary when you are trying to use the flash and the result is absolutely out of control. I have been there and I was very frustrated as the results were awful, and until I started to understand the flash and how to get it to give me the results I want. So the flash is the tool to add light to your scene and to improve your result. It is an accessory to the camera which is a must-have for every serious photographer. Learning how to use is critical. We can talk about flash for hours, but I'm gonna talk about only basic information to get you used to it, and we will touch each individual flash aspect in separate tutorials in the future. Today we're gonna touch base on the following topics: flash classifications, advantages and disadvantages, what do you need to know about flashes, characteristics, settings, and several situations. And we are going to go through a few exercises to help you get to learn how to control your flash, and we're going to end up with the conclusion. First, flash classifications. We have two types of flashes: integrated on-camera flashes or pop-up flashes. For the most point and shoot small and medium cameras, there is a small flash integrated similar to a phone these days, or a pop-up flash like this one, that can be used when needed either automatically or manually. Advantages for this kind of flashes is the convenience. Flash is always there, you don't need to worry about too much, as it will be part of the camera. The biggest disadvantage for small flashes is they have usually a small size, light, and that will create very harsh shadows and lack of power control. The position is always pointing to the subject, giving the worst average photos, which I do not like and I never recommend. The world is full of them, and you can do that without the proper camera, just a phone, and you don't need to be a photographer to get that sort of result. I'm not going to talk about these types of flashes, as I would never recommend to rely on them, as the results are very poor in my opinion. The other types of flashes, which we're going to talk about it today, is the separate flash units or flash cans. They are coming in a large variety of shapes and sizes and values, or also different power levels. They need to be purchased separate to the camera and used either mounted on a camera or off camera, connected with a cable or a wireless remote. They can match the camera brand or to be party produced, and this is always a good idea to get the compatible flash unit to talk to the camera and back. This is not always the case, and you will understand why after this tutorial. Advantages of separate flash units. First of all, you will have full control of the settings. You will be able to change the power settings and the direction of the light. Most of these flashes today can be rotated vertically or horizontally to shoot in different directions. Very important, very useful when you want to use a ceiling or a wall or as an indirect light source by pointing the flash towards the ceiling or towards another source as a reflected light solution. Second advantage is the flexibility in the position of the flash, as you can have a flash like this mounted on a camera, or you can take it off the camera for a better result. You have the choice to use your flash away from the camera for more interesting light results coming from a different direction, avoiding the poor front face flash results. You will have also the flexibility of adding more than one flash to the mix for the professional looking photos. You can choose to place several flashes in different positions by controlling them remotely or wirelessly. The only disadvantage of this flash unit is price and size. But for a serious photographer, I don't think this should be a deal breaker. First of all, flash has a power. It is represented by the amount of light produced during the exposure. It is measured in units, and it starts to 1. 1 unit is the full power and decreases in various increments to half of the power, half of unit, quarter, an eighth, or down to 1/28 of the power of a unit, which is not a lot of light. The important thing to remember is that 1 unit for one flash depends on each individual types of flash, and more expensive advanced flashes will have more power than a cheap one. Second of all, flash shooting mode. We have three choices and which we are going to discuss in detail. ettl mode, which is the short for exposure through the lens. This is basically the automatic mode of the flash, and you do not have to worry about it as much because if you're using it in proper situation. In order to benefit from this, you need to have a compatible flash with your camera, and they need to talk to each other. The way it works, camera by half press of the button will measure the distance and the brightness of the subject as it would normally do in a situation without the flash. Please see the previous tutorials of how camera works and metering modes. The camera will know that it has a flash attached to it, and it will tell the flash this information, and it will adjust the settings accordingly. Flash will do the same and will choose the appropriate power for the situation. Camera and flash will act together as one. Switching off the flash will change back also the camera settings for a proper exposure, so the camera knows if it has a flash or not on top of it. It is very important to understand that the camera will assume the flash is directed towards the subject and it knows the distance. The principle is not going to work if you do not have the flash on camera towards the subject and you're trying to bounce the light on an external surface. This is no way the camera can see, and you will not be able to control the result, not in ettl mode. ettl won't work if you do not have the flash on camera towards the subject. So ettl will work only in this scenario. I'm shooting towards the subject and the flash is directed towards the subject. This can be successful in low light situation or full sunlight or in order to fill in the harsh shadows. See the example and the difference of a portrait in full sunlight and without the ettl and the flash fill. I'm just going to show you a few examples right now. The second mode settings for the flash after the ettl is fully manual mode. In manual mode, you can manually select the amount of light the flash will give you. It does not care about the other camera settings, and for this you do not need to have a compatible flash necessarily. The flash will give you the same amount of light every time it triggers, regardless how natural light is available, distance to the subject or position. I find this mode of using the flash very useful when I have time to take few manual shots and adjust the camera settings accordingly. The best way to use manual flash is to set up the flash on maximum power, take a shot, see if the image is overexposed or underexposed, and play with the camera settings accordingly, not with the flash. If overexposed, I would either increase the shutter speed, decrease the aperture, and last one, change the ISO, also to the result you're after. If the image is underexposed, I would do the opposite. If you intend to use the flash for many shots at one session, I would decrease the power and do the same exercise of adjusting the camera settings. I will promise you that within 3 to 4 shots, you will get it right. The third and the last mode for the flash is multi-mode. In multi-mode, you tell the flash to trigger more than once in a specific interval with a specific power. You will be able to change these settings manually. The applicability of this mode is limited, only for a multi-exposure effect, which you can play with several times until you get bored and drop it altogether. I will show you in exercise what I'm talking about and let you decide how important it is for you. One other thing you need to worry about is flash zoom. I'm not sure about other flashes, but mine, as it is top of the range, has the ability to control the width of the light cone, how much light. This is important when you want to cover with light a wider or more narrow area in your image. I will not stress about this at this stage, as this is less important for now. Again, a different tutorial will explore this individual topic, the flash zoom. I'm gonna do a few exercises now. I'm gonna show you a method how to get to know your flash. I'm going to use this dummy. Okay, for this exercise, I'm gonna switch the camera to manual mode and use the ettl for the flash. I'm just gonna choose randomly 125 for shutter speed, aperture 4 and ISO 100. You should be able to get an image which should be properly exposed. I'm not going to comment on the fact that the light is frontal for the moment, and let's remember that this works only by pointing the flash towards the subject. Next step is to modify the settings which in a normal situation without the flash will underexpose the image. In my case, I will decrease the aperture to 10 and 20. I'm going to get the same result, and I'm going to decrease the aperture to 20, 22 in this case, and I'm going to get exactly the same result. In conclusion, in a normal situation without the flash, these settings will significantly underexpose the image, but using the flash in ettl mode and getting the same result every time regardless of the camera setting, that proves how the ettl works. It adjusts the flash settings accordingly in order to get the same result. The next step is use the manual mode of the flash. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn it on the manual mode, and I'm gonna use it on full power. I will keep the same settings as before, camera settings, manual mode, shutter speed 125, the aperture 4.5, and the ISO 100. This gives me a significantly overexposed picture. What can I do about it? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna modify only the camera settings in order to adjust it. So I'm gonna decrease aperture to 11. Another test shot. It's a bit better, I'm starting to see something. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna continue with the aperture to the minimum size, which is the largest number, which is 22. Now I have a good exposure. Remember, I have not modified the flash settings. Flash is on manual. I have adjusted the camera settings for this one. So in manual conditions, I will always take a shot and see the result on the LCD screen. If the image is overexposed, I will modify the shutter speed and aperture, or both, to suit this example, and take another shot. In this way, within 3 or 4 shots, I will promise I will get it right, and so should you. Also, having a lot of light in the scene will give you the best quality image and crisp and sharp. This is the best way how to use manual settings for the flash. As mentioned before, direct flash towards the subject is a no-go for a serious photographer. If indoors and if there is a ceiling above, I would turn the flash vertically towards the ceiling and use it as an indirect light source. I'm gonna test a few shots. In this case, because I'm gonna have an underexposed image, again, I'm gonna modify the camera settings. I'll lower the aperture up a little bit in order to get it right. Same thing, flash stays the same, I play only with the camera settings. So I'm 125, in this case, aperture 4 and ISO 100. This is a way better image. I'm gonna show this image very quickly on the screen. As you can see, it's a soft, very soft result, very nice, and I think this looks way better than before. You will notice that the quality of light is way better, as the ceiling will act as a large light source, and you will soften the shadows. You will notice some shadows under the chin. In order to compensate for the light under the chin, I'm gonna use this bounce card, which comes with my flash. You might not have it, but there are plenty of accessories out there to solve this, to help you with this situation. So I'm gonna take another test shot, and we're gonna compare the results. There are many accessories for the flash to soften the light, as this is a small light source, but we are going to talk about that in a different tutorial. As a word of advice, if you are going to use the manual settings, once you get used to it, I would actually attempt to use half of the flash power, or even a quarter, depending on the shooting conditions. This will help you save some batteries, because the flash uses a lot of power and it will drain the battery so very fast. In this case, use an additional battery pack, which will help me shoot for longer with absolutely more power. Just as an example, what I do for an event indoors, a conference or a party like a wedding reception, I would use the manual settings for the camera and for the flash. I would take few test shots with the flash towards the ceiling. I will get the exposure right and shoot for a long time without having to worry about camera settings, as the ceiling will be the same. Next exercise is the multi-mode. Just going back what multi-mode is, we're gonna tell the flash to trigger several times, frequency or in a specific interval with a specific power. So we can select 3 settings, which is 1 is the power, 2 is the count, and 3 is the interval. So I'm gonna select a quite low power because the flash needs some time to recharge, so the lower the power, the easier to recharge because you might not get it at the end. I'm gonna count to 5. I'm gonna select the 5 counts, so this is gonna trigger 5 times, and I'm gonna select the frequency of 9 Hz. Basically, this doesn't tell us anything. It's just you'll get used to your own flash. Is the time in between the triggers. I'm gonna do a test. I'm gonna show you the result. So in multi-mode, usually we need to take a shot in order to get the result. Depending on the desired effect, we can change the flash power, number of counts, and the interval until you get what you want. In conclusion, having the right flash and knowing how to use it is very important for a serious photographer. Spending a bit of time to learn how to control it, it will repay your efforts with great results. I would recommend you follow our advice, play with your equipment until you are in control, and let us know if you are happy with our lessons.